like, yeah, because I'm not a flaky person. I don't think about stuff. I either do it or I don't. And when I do it, I'm going to do it at 110%. And that's a problem with this generation. It drives me nuts. All hype, they're all in, or they fall off, or someone else now has a better idea. And I'm like, that everyone is a jack of all trades, master of none.
All right, welcome to True Talk. Got a special guest with us today, Amela. I'm messing up. Amela Smalibegovic.
You said it perfect.
Did I really?
Yeah.
Amela Smalibegovic. Perfect. There we go.
Perfect.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate you coming in. And I was looking at the numbers, Amela, and it's June, week 1. The numbers are current as of June, week 1, and you're already Hall of Fame. Over 400 families helped this year. And you've been with us a total of how long? 6-7 months?
About 6 months.
Got it.
Today.
Okay. Were you in sales prior to this?
I have been in sales pretty much all my life. Industry-wise, about almost 15 years in sales, but complete different industry.
What was the last industry you were in before you joined us?
So I did real estate, particularly timeshare, for almost 15 years. Never in the insurance industry, but to me, sales is sales.
Got it. How'd you get into timeshares?
So, funny story, I actually studied political science and philosophy in Elon University, North Carolina.
Yeah.
My dad was one of the top, finance attorneys back in our country, former Yugoslavia. I would have been third generation, so I'm like, law school, right? It's what I always had in mind. And I came to Florida. I said, let me try it out. Let me see if I like it. Started working for Morgan & Morgan.
Yeah.
For the people, right? Which was great.
Yeah.
I mean, a great exposure, one of the best, top law firms now in the nation. I wanted to do human rights because of everything that happened in our country, and I realized I'd work for free somewhere for the Peace Corps.
Got it. Okay.
So my mom at the time, she's an executive architect for David Siegel.
Yeah.
David Siegel, the king of timeshare, right? Westgate Resorts owner. And so she gave me the idea and got my license. They all laughed at me. They said, we'll have the door open. You're leaving all this for sales. I'm like, I won't be back.
Right.
Never looked back. And so I just scaled, into different levels and different companies within the timeshare industry till I kind of got to the top.
Okay. You mentioned what happened in your country. You're from Croatia?
Croatia.
Yeah.
So obviously originally Bosnia, Sarajevo, Bosnia. My dad's from Bosnia. My mom is from Croatia.
Okay.
And then
Dean Pavlik is from Bosnia.
Pavlic.
Yeah. Yep.
Don't forget the little thing at the sea. Pavlic.
Yeah. Pavlich. Oh, see, you know what? He's never corrected me.
I know. We try not to do that because our second generations will add an H to our name to make it easier for you guys.
Got it. Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, all you gotta do is tell me. I'll say the right name. So Dean Pavlich.
Like you got
I gotta call him today.
So
yeah.
close. I didn't want to.
Wow. Well, he told me it was Pavlik, so that's on him.
Yeah, we Americanized a little bit.
Yeah, I got you. So you were born in Croatia?
So
born
in Bosnia,
Got
raised in Croatia. My family's from both, but I grew up mainly in Croatia. That's where I went to school, and that's where I came from when I moved to the U.S. I was I finished third grade in Croatia when I moved.
Got it. And you were there during a time where things weren't going so well, right? There's a war going on.
It was probably one of the worst civil wars in the 21st century.
Yeah. And how old were you when all this was happening?
So when the war started, I was about 5.
Okay. Got it.
It was right in the early 90s.
Yeah. What's that like for a 5-year-old? Because you don't understand everything at that age, right? And I'm sure your parents do. And, what was that like, 5 years old, big war going on?
The thing about me and my family, we're a very tight unit. I'm an only child.
Okay.
I'm an only grandchild. And people sometimes laugh because how close I am with my dad, but he has always treated me as an adult.
Yeah.
So from the time that I was a kid, I knew pretty much everything that was going on. I was a part of my family decisions at the age of 5. I was treated as an adult, so I always knew. Obviously, you don't know the severity of it. As a kid, you don't know, the money's going to run out, whatever the case is, right?
Right.
But I knew during that time that it was life-changing, right? And it could go either way. And my dad was able to get us out because the exits from the town were blocked off.
Okay.
So anyone that was left in town for years, you had no contact.
just
There was
stuck
no
there.
yeah. A civil war, which a lot of people don't know, like there's no government anymore.
Right,
like
right.
your money that's in the banks is gone. Like people come to your door with guns and it's like, give me your car. Like there's just aside from just food and communication. So we didn't see my dad for a little over 3 years. And the only communication we had was maybe every couple of months, he would call someone within our little town in Croatia to say that he was alive.
Wait, so where was he?
In Sarajevo, he stayed back, to help with his parents because his parents were older to kind of take care of everything. He was trying to get us out, and he was like, I'll take care of everything, meet you when I can.
Got it.
Well, and you know how war progresses, exit shut down, you can't get out. His dad died, during that time. He had to pretty much bury his dad, by himself. It's some pretty ugly things that you see and some pretty ugly sides of people. Family turns on family, brothers turn on, because it was all one country, one culture. There was different religions and this and that, so it was a territorial dispute. Mm-hmm. So one brother was going to go here, the other, so.
Got it.
It was a lot of ugly stuff.
So 3 years goes by where you guys don't really see. You hear from him, you hear he's okay, but you don't really know what's going on.
Correct. Yeah.
And then when did you guys leave there to come to the U.S.?
So during that time, I started school in Croatia.
Okay.
I always just say, I was like that little Jerry Maguire kid.
Yeah.
So at that point, I realized, wow, my mom's going through a lot, or she's, having her own mental battles. My dad's not there. I'm like, well, I got to take care of the household.
Yeah.
So I would, get her up and say, hey, Mom, you got to go to work. I would get myself dressed. I would go to school. We would actually walk to school, 2 miles every morning. I'd meet my friends at the corner who are still my best friends to this day.
Really?
Those girls I grew up with. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a group of, 5 of us. Now they're married. Their kids now know me. So I go back for a month every single year in September and see them.
Oh, that's cool.
So that same group, they would meet me at the bar. We would walk, rain, sunshine, didn't matter, and there was never a choice in me. It's not like I had to think about it. That it was just in me. That's how I am. That's my character. Yeah. I don't really complain. It's you get it done. I don't have mental issues with, I don't. You just plow through and you get it done. Yeah. Everything's going to be okay. And then finally my dad was able to get out. And at that time, it was during the Clinton administration. You're my generation, so you remember.
Oh, yeah.
He was very involved. If you remember, a lot of aid that he would send there. And he was helping a lot of refugees come. So there was a lot of churches in the U.S. that were helping groups come over. And the big hubs for that were Minneapolis, Detroit, Louisville, Kentucky, Chicago. That's why you'll see big hubs of people from our country in those areas.
Okay.
So someone had to vouch for you. We had an aunt in Louisville, Kentucky.
Oh, she had an aunt that was already here.
Correct.
Got it.
Correct. Well, distant.
Yeah,
because my family's very small, so distant aunt. And she sent the affidavits, paperwork. My dad was able to get out. So at that time, he sent us out again. So he's like, you two go. Tell me if you can make it, right? And I still have to stay back, take care of, and if not, so then me and my mom came here in 95 maybe.
Okay.
95.
So you've been close to 10?
Yeah, at 4th grade. 9, I would say.
It was just you and your mom. Your dad was still overseas.
Just me and my mom. So, and
what was that like coming to the U.S.?
It's a different world, right? But at that age, you're everything's new and it's exciting, and you don't really realize how little you have or do or don't, you know, till now you look back at it and we laugh. She bought a $500 Hyundai, and we were we made it. She got a job at the airport because she's an architect. She was able to stay in her profession, and then my dad, comes a year later. He was like, you didn't make it. He's like, this is bad. He's like, we got to change it.
Right.
But that's my dad's, the numbers, the finances, and all that. Yeah. So we rebuild everything, 2 to 3 times in our lives. So, when I tell people, when people say I have everything I want, I don't understand that statement because I am everything I want. You can take away all my cars, my houses, and I'm still the same person. I still have the same confidence, and I walk with my head high just if everybody loved me or if nobody liked me, because everything that I need is within me.
Yeah,
and I've just always had that self-belief. So no matter if you lose everything, you got to stay that way. That's what keeps you in the game long term.
That's a lot, right, to go through at any age, but especially a young age. And so much of what we go through at a young age kind of shapes you
Yeah.
for the rest of you, good or bad, right?
Yeah.
What would you say the biggest lesson that you learned from all of that you kind of carry into you being an adult?
Wow. I've never thought about like one. I would just say resilience and grit. There is just really nothing that could break me.
Right.
I say that, and I say that with a grain of salt, because people know that if anything happens to my dad, that'll be the one thing.
Sure.
That'll be my what after, and once you see, and I try to instill this in people. I do a lot of empowerment talks. I do a lot of speaking events. I always say, you guys, like, we're going sad about stupid stuff, like,
Right.
A girl or a guy, or like, get over it. Like, I'd have my family killed on genocide, and I'm like, all right, that's life. We got to move on. Like, what are you gonna do? Curl up in a ball and cry? That's just not even within me.
Right.
So I think resilience, and no matter how good or how bad, you just keep it moving, and I had another like near-death experience with a car accident my senior year, and I'll never forget my parents were like, we wouldn't have made it through if it wasn't for your attitude, right? And I sat there in the hospital bed like for a month, like not moving, like.
So you're a senior in high school?
A senior in college. Senior in
You got
college.
into a car accident. You were driving or?
Passenger.
Passenger. Got it.
And like they wouldn't even let me look at my face, I think, for like a month because it was so bad.
Wow.
Yeah. And I just sat there and I was like, guys, it's fine. I was like, we're good. Like,
Yeah.
I was comforting other
Right,
people
right.
because that's just how I am. I never once cried.
Yeah.
It's not.
Now, did you realize at the time that, it had a lot to do with the way you were raised and what you've gone through, so that, to your point, this car accident, which would have,
Maybe
crippled
ruined
most people mentally, but because you've gone through things that are a lot worse, right? This was not that it was nothing, but it was like, okay, we'll just push through.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I never thought about that till now. Maybe.
Yeah.
I told myself I just don't have another way of thinking. So, it didn't
Right.
even, nothing else like to cry or to complain or to. Now, I'll be mad about something and voice
Sure.
my opinion clearly, and
Yeah.
people might think I'm like, that's not complaining. I don't complain. But I'm going to tell you if I don't like something or try to change it, or that's, but maybe that's a good
Yeah.
point. I guess I never thought about it. And that was another huge shift. I think if there was two big shifts in creating who I am, was that event and the war.
That makes sense.
Those were like my.
So what'd you do right after college?
So after college, the accident happened, so I didn't get to walk with my class. It was literally
Really?
in April of my senior year, a month before I walked. And my parents by that time had moved to Orlando.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, well, I'll stay here, because I had to do physical therapy. I finished the same year. I finished with my class, so I did all my online classes. So I focused on that. I focused on physical therapy. I took that year to just kind of, focus on myself and what I wanted to do. And at that time, I was thinking law school.
Yeah.
And then, that's when Morgan and timeshare and all that.
Got it. So 15 years in timeshares. Did you enjoy
Almost. I love anything I do. I
Yeah.
find passion in anything I do, because it's just the game of the industry and of new knowledge and of conquering new fields and seeing people, helping people grow. I'm a team builder. I'm
Yeah.
a leader, right? I'm an agent as well. That's how I've always started. But guiding others and seeing others succeed is kind of what drives me. So, of course, I loved it.
Got it. So almost 15 years. And then, now did you know Eric Bosworth prior to
No.
this? You didn't?
Well, through mutual friends and
Okay.
through, let's say, social media, maybe for about a year or so, but certain people follow successful people,
Yeah.
right? And you can decipher very quickly. Like the 90%, I drop. I'm like, yeah, that's cloud, that's smoke, that's,
Right.
But I'm like, man, like, okay, like he's doing something. He's built like this is. So you watch certain people
Got
within
it.
the
But you never
community.
worked with him or knew
No.
him personally. You just knew him through social media.
Correct.
Got it.
And mutual
Okay.
friends.
And then, so how did you go from timeshares, following Eric Bosworth, to Family First Life?
Well, he followed me. No,
Okay.
I'm just playing.
I'm sorry.
I hope he sees this. No, I'm just
All right,
kidding.
he
I'm
followed
kidding.
you.
No,
You followed him
kidding.
back.
I don't follow nobody first. No, I'm kidding. So he reminded me. I have one guy friend that I always call my brother, and people
Okay.
think he's my brother. Todd Special, right? His wife is, one of my best friends.
Yeah.
I love his family, his children, and he was tied like this with me in the industry, and anywhere we went, we brought each other. Hey,
Okay.
like we put each other on, right? And I love that. And there's probably no one that's non-blood that I trust more than him.
Got it.
And Eric was literally a rep. I'm like, oh my gosh, he reminds me of Todd so much. And the two of them are friends, and they're going to collaborate on some stuff, But I was like, I have never had someone, because it reminded me of a male version of myself,
Got
you
it.
know? But again, I'm an energy person, so you don't really know. So in our industry, we have been affected by certain things as well, just like solar industry has, right? That's kind of capped off our income now. Was I comfortable? Yeah. I put my dues in, right?
Yeah.
I was sitting back now because I had
It wasn't about the money at this
no,
point.
and I had an autopilot team, you know, but I couldn't really scale it anywhere. I already had the top team. I already had the top guy in the entire industry, I already broke some records, as a female and in terms of volume, for that industry, in any industry actually. And then I saw things getting very corporate. I'm a trailblazer. Like, you can ask anyone. I'll drive them crazy, right? But that's just how I am. I like to stir up the status quo. And I could do that in the industry when it was diamond. But when corporate comes, it's just, we're all cookie cutter. And I'm not meant to be that. I'm meant to be different. I am different. I'm okay with it. Who likes it, likes. Who doesn't. That's okay too, right? But I cannot be, I can't be, held back in my creativity.
Yeah.
Or in what I want. I felt like I couldn't really sell the way that I wanted to or say certain things because I was afraid that someone might write a letter and Hilton won't like that, or, so I was looking for a second career. Not a second career, but a second industry that I can conquer.
Got it.
My initial thought was, I'm going to open up my own brokerage.
In insurance or real estate?
Real estate.
Real estate.
Okay.
Okay.
My own brokerage. I'm going to bring as many people, from that industry, and then I'm just going to open up offices, and I'm going to be the biggest brokerage in Florida in the next 5 years. Like, that's how I had it in my head.
Yeah.
And I was going to get it done one way or another, right?
Sure.
And then, we were talking for a little bit, and he said, I'm going to be in the Orlando office. Why don't you come meet me? And people have hit me up for a million business opportunities.
Yeah.
I'm always like, not interested. It's always an event.
So had he tried to recruit you prior to this or no?
No.
No. God, this is the first time y'all are even meeting talking about business.
Well, because I think we kind of, maybe, subliminal, we've spoken, but he knew that I was the type of person that you can't just, I'm self-made. I have my businesses, that it can't be like, that he had to either meet me in person or explain it to me to where my brain would be like, oh, this is,
Right.
Which I respect. I respect that he came at me that way because otherwise I probably would have just been like, nah, I'm good, But then I'm also the kind of person that if I meet you in person, I'm already 80% in.
Okay.
Otherwise, I would have been like, hey, listen.
So you were 80% in.
I was already there.
Why?
Yeah.
Why were
Because
you
my
80%
mind
in?
was already out of my industry.
Okay.
I was kind of on autopilot shut off for about a
What'd you know
year.
about insurance at that point?
Not much besides, my brother, Todd, he did it for, and even when he left, timeshare I didn't follow because it wasn't right for me at that point. Like, I have to feel like my soul, my everything in me tells me. I'm like that. I'm like, okay, time to go, and this is what we're doing.
Got it. So it wasn't the right time then.
No. And I've seen people, I have friends and stuff like that, so I knew, roundabout. And so I went to the office, and he was like, here's what it is. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I want you to do. This is, how I would like for you to help me scale it. You have a large, organic following from the industry, from the sales industry. And I'm, just in my head, I always have windows. And I'm always, like, thinking, and then I shut down my windows, like, one by one.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, scaling, unlimited. I can bring as many. I'm like, oh, I got it. I'm like, I like this. I'm like, all right, good. He was like, and then I'm like, no. I'm like, I'm good. I trust your word. I shake your hand. And that was that. And people are like, you just left a 15-year career where you were sending me. I'm like, yeah, because I'm not a flaky person. I don't think about stuff. I either do it or I don't. And when I do it, I'm going to do it at 110%. That's a problem with this generation. It drives me nuts. All hype, they're all in. Then 2 months later, where are you? It's the
it's
kids
not fun.
this week.
It
No,
has
you
to be
either
fun.
do it or you don't.
Right.
Yeah, or they fall off, or someone else now has a better idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that everyone is a jack of all trades, master of none. Half
Right.
these people I can't tell what they do.
Right.
And I tell them that. It's I don't say to be mean, but it's true.
Sure.
I'm like, you're an artist, or we're doing crypto, but you also do some real estate.
Right, yeah, pick
With
something.
me, yeah. And I have other businesses. I have rental properties. I do mentorship. But with me, Amela does timeshare. Now Amela does insurance. And
Yeah.
it's clear cut. And I'm going to be the best at it.
So
And
what was the biggest thing about meeting with Eric that made you go, you know what, this is the right move?
The energy was right.
Yeah.
It was exactly what I was hoping for, right?
Okay.
I have a certain thing about trust that I can feel. You know what I mean? And if something is a little weird, like I'm a very intuitive person. I'm a Virgo. Like that's how we're sixth sense at all times,
Yeah.
right? If anything was a little bit off, and he broke it down pretty clear, and I'm like, well, and then this is what I need, right?
Yeah.
And he could meet that, and I'm like, you know what? Like, we could blow this up. I also was kind of seeing what they were doing. They were the fastest growing, in FFL. They went, from 5 agents to 500,
Had you heard of FFL prior to that, or did you find
No.
out through Eric?
Correct.
Yeah.
Mhm,
Gotcha.
yeah, I did, yeah.
So you left that meeting. Did you get a license right away? Like, what were your next
Correct.
steps?
So, well, by then, I was already thinking, right, like a week before that, like who I would want to bring with me,
Yeah.
right? And again, I wasn't sure how much work or stress or hours it would require. I just knew that I was, made for it, built for it,
Yeah.
right? And I was like, I'm gonna give everyone else a shot and see who sticks with me. So right away, and I had I had a group of 10 or so, right? And I was like, all right, we got to get on this right away. We got to onboard. We got to take our test, take our license. We got that done probably within a week or two.
Yeah.
I had a couple girlfriends, with me. I had a couple of guys, from timeshare that were on board, and we were like a little group.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the beginning, Eric said, I want you to shadow me for the first. So where he went, I went. And I just soaked in, right? And December 1st was when I officially started.
Okay.
Now I was still working my other job, right? For about a month or two because, I had business that I had to make sure I got paid on.
Yep.
And it wasn't a conflict of interest. It's a different industry. Right. So I could have, and so then December 1st, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this full time. And the irony of it all, nobody really that started with me is still here.
Yeah, that's how it is. Yeah.
and we built it to something bigger. And it's still going to be always like that, because my industry is the same. So that doesn't worry me. People are just not meant for that grit. I knew I was going to have to get back in the trenches.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you know how much of a grind this business would be when you first got into it, or was that something you learned after you made the jump?
Something I learned when I made the jump. Yeah. Well, because of what I want to do with it.
Right.
Now, could I have more time off, more free time? Does it not have to be as much of a grind if I don't want to have teams and maybe be the fastest growing agent in downline NFL? Sure. You know, and I could, brunch like they do on weekends.
Yeah.
But that's not my, So I knew I was like, we got to roll it personally.
Yeah.
If I want it, because I'm like that. I'm just going to be the best or I'm not going to do it at all. Or give it my 100%.
Right.
But timeshare was like that for me too.
Okay, so you were used to being in industries where you have to grind at this.
Well, in the beginning.
Right.
Till you build it up, right? I remember my first year in timeshare when they were given the speech, they were like, Rookie of the Year or something, and they said, I think this girl worked 362 days. My first year is what I worked in timeshare.
Yeah.
They literally were telling me you can't take that many tours. I was like, why not? I closed 60%. You want to give some of them to the guy that closes 30? Let me know.
Right.
I'm cool with it.
Yeah. Your first month, you helped over 60 families. Was that on the phone, in-home? Where were you selling?
We do everything via Zoom. Via Zoom and phone. Nothing door to door. I did have some warm markets. But not a lot. I'm not, I do have a lot of, connections and networking, but I am mainly focused on the tools that are given to me, and I like
What
that.
was the biggest change you had to make? Because it's a different sale, right, compared to timeshare real estate. What was the biggest thing you had to change from a sales perspective to help families with life insurance versus timeshares and real estate?
To me, the sales process, and I remember Gary Vee saying this once, by the way, my favorite speaker.
Yeah.
Oh, I love him better than anyone. He speaks to my soul. But he said, salesmanship is such a rare gift. It's like being born beautiful. And so sales to me is sales.
Yeah. Okay.
So it could be this mic. It could be like, all right, give me those cameras and I'll sell more than whoever's selling cameras out there. I don't know, in the camera field,
Yeah.
right? But so the sales portion of it wasn't that much,
Okay.
right? Not the sales process that I had down pat. It was obviously you had to learn a different product, right? So you have to learn a different product, but it was more of the client approach. And Ian and I laugh about it today, or like even sometimes Eric, I was like, oh, I know what I'm going to do. I'm like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to raise ATS, average transaction size, right? We're going to do this. And then when I was like, oh, no, I got to make the payment comfortable.
Right.
Because in timeshare, you want to ramp it up. Hey,
Sure.
if you can do 50, you can do 70 grand. You can. So it's a little, maybe it's a little different clientele sometimes, right? So then I had to gear that. I had to make that portion, the volume and how I approach a clientele a little different. And I had to go back to a client relationship, which I hadn't done for a while. I was a closer for the past, decade. Half the time they didn't even bring me to the table because they didn't, I would just go and introduce myself.
It's completely different clientele, right? I mean, timeshares are usually people with, I would assume, a lot more money than your average client
Not
looking
so
for
much.
life insurance.
You'd be surprised. Not so much.
Okay.
And I do compare very similar to timeshare. I'm like, this timeshare, this is the clientele.
Yeah.
Because rich people, and I hate to say it is what it is, they don't care about timeshare because they're living on their yacht or they got a villa in Spain.
Yeah.
Like, just like they don't care about insurance because they got trust funds for their kids already with their Merrill Lynch advisor, right?
Got it.
So it is for that 90% of Americans, right? That are like lower to mid. That maybe if they didn't have something like that, they couldn't take their kids to Orlando.
Right.
Or if they didn't have something like that and something happens, that their families didn't have to go do GoFundMe on Facebook.
Yeah.
So it's a very similar clientele.
Got it.
In terms of that, is there some,
But the biggest adjustment for you was finding that budget versus in the past it was like, hey, how much can we get them to spend?
It was like, can we So now, instead of like raising ATS, right? Because I'm always like, hey, if they can do 500 a month, they can do 600, right? In timeshare, right? So I would raise my ATS very quickly like that. Like I would put, 5K on, or I would, incentivize with a trip and add 5.
Gotcha.
Now I tend to go a little lower. So when people tell me 200, I said, well, I want you 100% comfortable. Because I would rather, us never question if we can make them. It's always easy to increase. Are you more comfortable with 150? You know what? You're right. That'll be, Yeah. So that and approaching the clientele, I went back and I remember Eric telling me this in the beginning. He's like, you're so quick to go into close to close to close. Remember, you got to go back to that client relationship. And that's what I went back to. And I would just, like sometimes I'd be done with the application and still talk to them for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So I had to kind of go back to that. And I like that because I did forget that aspect of it.
Right.
It became just
life
numbers.
Insurance is emotional sale.
Yeah.
Which a lot of other industries are transactional, to where you don't need to go back, but you really need to know their why and bring it back to them at times, because sometimes mid-appointment they may want to change their mind and go, hey, remember you said that if you pass, your wife's screwed? Like that hasn't changed in the last 20 minutes. So was that the biggest adjustment for you?
No, because timeshare is an emotional sale too.
Is it? Okay.
A lot of people don't understand. Cars, maybe not so much.
Right.
Solar, not so much, but timeshare is, because it's like, hey, this is time for you and your family. Everything ties back to the family, just like insurance does.
Got it. So you were used to the emotion.
It's need, greed, help, hurry. Hey, how can we make sure that, because you told me if you don't have this, Cindy and Tom don't get to go to Disney. So it was a very emotional sale too.
Okay.
So that was easy to go back to, making them laugh, making them, realize why they needed it today versus tomorrow, finding the DBM, dominant buying motive. Yeah. And it always goes back to that greed, need, family, hurry, help,
Right.
like insurance.
You've been with us about 7 months, right?
Why you keep saying 7?
Am I wrong?
6.
6. Okay. Well,
Just kidding,
December
just
through
kidding.
June.
Yes. Okay, this is my 7th.
This is your 7th. Okay. All right.
Oh, it's like my dad.
We'll have to fact check this podcast. So you've been with us 6 months, right? Have you had any death claims?
No,
No,
not
not yet.
Now, I've had owners that have lost family members that are like, oh, Mela, like, and they'll call me, they miss a payment.
Yeah.
Like, I'm their first go-to, hey, I'm so sorry, my brother just died. Like, can you, call Omaha and have it next week? No problem, I got you. So I've had that. I just had a client whose twin brother passed away, who I signed up like 2 days before that. So that.
Yeah. Got it. Mm-hmm. So I guess I have a different question for you. Most people I have on here have had a couple death claims,
right.
and it's always like that's kind of the moment where it becomes real, right? Mm-hmm. Not that you can't sell and at a high level prior to that, but how do you remind yourself of the importance of life insurance, even though you haven't gone through that experience yet? Mm-hmm. Like, why is it so important?
Because I truly believe in anything that I do.
Okay.
Right? Anything that I do, and I'll throw my whole passion, and even when people are like, oh, time, I'm like, well, no, I truly believed that, this was the memory that those kids will remember 10 years from now when their parents are long gone.
Yeah. Just
like I truly believe that, this is something that is going to make a huge difference for their kids if they set them up correctly, if they, especially when they're doing it for their, younger kids, when parents are doing IULs for their young kids, who want to set them up. So I love that. I wish, and then younger kids too. When younger kids are calling and knowledgeable about this, I love that. I'm like, I wish our generation, right, was more knowledgeable in our 20s, right? We were 20s, I'm like, wow, like, I was, like somewhere in downtown Senso, like at your age, like this is good. So it just, everything that I do becomes a passion to me. When I say I'm married to the game, like I truly mean that.
Yeah.
There's nothing else that I'd want to do besides this. I helped a guy last night until 3.
Yeah.
And people were like, yeah, I knew I had to get up for this. I'm like, man. And I told him too, I said, no. I said, it's 10:30. And I said, how many policies do you need? He's like, well, I want to do my kids. So I'm like, fine, I'll do it. He's like, thank you so much for doing it. He's on Cali time, right? So it's 3 hours.
Oh, so wait, you flew in last night, right?
Yeah.
You came here to do this. Mm-hmm. And then at 10 o'clock, you had an appointment with someone on the West Coast.
I didn't even have an appointment.
You did?
It was a live lead.
Okay.
No, live lead from months ago.
Got it.
We talk, this and that. He pushed me. I do not bother people, call people back. I'm heavy on takeaways.
Yeah.
I will hit you up once, and after, and I promise you, every single person that set me up. So I wrote in here, I'll show you, May 11th, right? And I said, are you ready? No response. I said, all right, no big deal.
So it was a lead from May.
He hit me up.
And then he called you back, what, last night?
Yeah, was that 4 weeks late, 6 weeks later?
Yeah.
Yeah, 6 weeks later. He said, can you talk? I said, no, it's 10:30. But I gain a lot of, it's crazy, the amount of trust I gain with people. And I do it very, very quickly, right? Yeah. That they feel like, because everything that we do, we're doing it together. We're a team.
So you did it last night till 2:30?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Helped out him and his family. How many policies?
So that was 4.
4.
Mm-hmm. So IUL for him, 1 for his wife, 1 for his 18-year-old daughter, and children's whole life.
Yeah.
For his son. So
you're in a spot now, I mean, Hall of Fame, you got a decent-sized agency. I think you heard you say earlier, kind of money's not what drives you.
No.
Like, you're from a financial standpoint, you're doing pretty well. Mm-hmm. What is it that keeps you going?
Well, I come from, and I always say it's different when you come from, I come from blue blood, right? Yeah. My dad was one of the top attorneys. We went skiing in Austria every weekend. I had whatever I want, I didn't have anything, right? But my mind and my passion and my drive never changes. And my dad raised me that way. He instilled core values that are not moved by the outside world, right? So when you get to a point that you have everything and nothing and then everything again, and that, it doesn't really shape you and doesn't change you. My why is always stronger than that. And at first, it was me to get me right? And then through my sobriety, which was 7 years ago, it became the collective.
Got it.
And I was like, how do I change the collective? How do I help? And I've seen that in timeshare where I had, a 20-year-old girl that, started with me that no one even wanted to work with, that 2 years later bought a Tesla and her own house and said, thank you so much. Like, some guys that are with me now that are younger, I've seen them, at early 20s become a dad and buy their own house, which is what I would preach to them when they were an agent. I'm like, no popping bottles, go put a down payment on a house, But I love to see that. Like
seeing
that,
the other people.
Oh my God, that gives me so much satisfaction. It sounds cliche, but it's really not cliche because I'm good. And when what am I going to buy another car? But yeah, of course you want, money. But when you see that, the money will always come to you when you make it outside of yourself.
Right.
Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to be happy, because some of these top entrepreneurs, you'll see, they made it. They proved everyone wrong. They have the mansions, the cars, and they are still not happy. They're actually some of the most unhappy people I know.
Yeah.
Because it was always about the money. And then when they got it, there was nothing else.
Sure.
there was nothing else to bring that, right?
Yeah.
So when you make your why outside of that, when it's that strong, it'll carry you throughout.
Right. And it's very important to never forget where you came from. Like you said,
1000%.
you had everything and then lost it all. Like, do you remember what it felt like to have nothing?
I do. Of course I do. But it just, like, I did not feel a shift in my head.
Okay.
I didn't, Like, I remember my mom's friend brought us, like, she came from, the capital, and she was like, hey, I brought her some clothes, like, because I was just starting first grade, right? So, and I had these, like, two, we called them szkocka suknia. So they were, like, these little, like, Irish skirts.
Yeah.
That were, like, popular. And I remember I would be, like, wearing those two, and I would, like, switch out the tops. There was, like, 2 or 3, right? And to me, like, I walked in every day in the classroom like it was a Vogue fashion show. And I'll never forget, my friend was like, you wore that yesterday. I was like, no, I didn't. Like, but that, what I mean?
Right.
And that's just how I am. And I remember when I came here in 4th grade, I didn't have a word of English. They just dropped me in class in Klondike Elementary. They were doing a spelling test. I'm like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
So I just, like, looked at the person next to me. It was, like, just copying whatever they were doing to turn it in, right? And the teacher was like, yeah, next time don't copy. She wrote it in English. I had to take it to my aunt to translate it to me. And at that time, like, my mom couldn't even pick me up. I had to ride the school bus. Like, everybody had lunches. I had to pay for, like, the nasty school, whatever we had. They had those, like, pizzas or, like, with the, those.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I remember
the
school
corn
lunches.
dogs and stuff. But, like, I sat there with my little, like, with everybody that, like, it was the best thing ever. Like, that's just how my mindset is, And it's not fake it till you make it. It's not fake it because fake it till you make it is for people that are faking something.
Sure.
Who I am is real.
Yeah.
And that's just the aura and the energy that, I've always carried. And, I don't know, it never made me feel any, we were living with my aunt. We moved into Imperial House in Louisville, which was, like, for assisted living, right?
Okay.
We got the furniture from, like, some, like, yards, but to me it was the best thing ever. I walked into that apartment, I'm like, I love, like, know what I mean? The same thing as when, 2 years later, we built the biggest house in Town and Country in Shelby County and had the Benzes and this and that. Like, I still felt the same.
Got it.
And not a lot of people can ever get there, but I'm always on that, like, 5th dimension.
Yeah. Well, people, think, and I think a lot of it's the way we're raised, society, that, once you get to a certain amount of money, everything's going to be great. Like the people that play the lottery, right? If I just win the lottery, everything's going to be fixed and perfect.
And the curse of the lottery, that's a perfect example, right?
Yeah. What happens to 99% of people that win the lottery?
Yeah.
They're actually doing worse after the fact because it's not about the money. If you're not happy with who you are, if your mind isn't right, you could have all the damn money in the world. It's not going to make a difference. You mentioned sobriety. 7 years now?
Yes.
7.
Almost
I don't know if you correct me. 6, 7, like the month. No. So 7
nah,
years.
Well, because I don't even have, but yeah.
What made you make that leap, that decision to change? It's a huge change, right?
Well, again, everything I do in life, I'm an extremist, right? Yeah. Good or bad.
Sure.
So I was an extremist in partying too in my younger years, right? But I kept up with everything. I was always the top student, 4.0. I went to a private school. I was the top tennis player.
So it was never a problem.
Yeah, and tennis player in the state. I was, so I was like, oh, I can keep this. I can do whatever I want, right?
Sure.
Till it got to a point that, as you get older, you don't handle it as well. And you realize, well, I'm not in college anymore. And then second, what am I doing? Like,
Right.
this is a real world, you know? And I'm so like conscious of how important the mind is and how powerful the mind is. And the reason no one can beat me in life in anything, and I don't mean that in a cocky way, like I know Michael Phelps is going to beat me in swimming. Like, I'm not saying it that.
Right.
Is because my mind is just that sharp and that trained. And even though, like, I wouldn't drink for a couple months, right? But then when I would overdo it.
Got it.
And then I'm coming in work. It's brain fog for the next 3 days.
Yeah.
You hit your 30s, you don't recover like you used
Right.
to. It's like death for the whole week, right? And I'm like, why? Like, why am I doing this? And also, if I make a mistake, it's on me.
Yeah.
You know, when you're dealing with, with finance money, like, it's on me. And not just that, but why give people any extra ammunition that they don't need? Because they're already not going to like me because where I'm at in my life, the people that are not my people anyways, right?
Sure.
They're already not going to like me because, my spirit bothers their demons. They're already not going to like me because my convictions are so much stronger than their securities, right? So why give them that extra, nugget that they can be like, oh, yeah, I saw Amela drunk at 2 a.m. and I'm like, no, we're not going to do that.
Got it.
And I cut like that.
Cold turkey.
There's no AA. I'm like that. I'm a mental monster.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't need that, never went to AA, never, just that day, I was like, yeah, that life is done.
How long before you noticed a change?
I would say 6 months.
Really? Mm-hmm. Wow.
Well, I apologize. You notice it right away,
Yeah.
right? You notice it. You feel better. You're like, oh, like I'm not bloated. Right? You feel better. But I took a lot of that time because I wanted to get to the next level within myself, right? Here's a problem with our generation, right? This is why everybody trauma bonds and everybody's healing. What are you guys healing from? Like, get it together. Like, this is why. Because no one deals with their emotions in the raw. Here's what happens. We sleep it away with people.
Yeah.
We drink it away. We smoke it away. We work it away. And it just, or we transfer it to the next person. It never gets dealt with in the raw form. So I'm like, I got to deal with everything in the raw form, no matter if I'm a very strong person or this and that. Like, there's still probably trauma that I haven't dealt with. There's probably still suppressed anger,
Sure.
from the, so I just really shut out the world those 6 months. I went to work, right? Work home. And I just sat with myself and I said, I want to feel it all. I want to feel the pain. I want to, and I've said this in one of the reels, I want to feel the embarrassment. I want to feel the hurt, the betrayal. I want to, the disappointment in myself. Like, I want to feel it in the raw.
Because for so long you didn't feel?
Yeah. No, because, no one does. Because
Right.
no matter what, anything that you put in outside of yourself, you're not feeling with something on the raw. Right?
Sure.
It doesn't matter. People are like, it's been a long day. Give me a glass of wine. No. Deal with that mental anguish without that glass of wine. Without that,
Yeah.
And imagine doing that on the long term, and imagine doing that on the broader spectrum of all your feelings and all your past.
Right.
And then finally, like, I wanted to feel it all. And after that, I was like, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
I was like,
Was it like, looking back, did you think it wasn't as bad as I thought it would have been, or?
It's never bad for me.
Yeah.
It was never even bad in the midst of, like, that's just, when I make a decision, it's not going to be, if I say, hey, there's a burning bridge and I'm walking through it, that's not going to burn me, right?
Yeah.
I probably will get pretty severely burned, but that's the choice that
Sure.
I make. You know what I mean? And I'm not going to be like, oh, that was terrible, and be like, that was the choice. So no, none of it was really, it wasn't bad at all. It was probably the best and most pivotal decision I've ever made.
Yeah.
And my brain, so then I would come into work, right? And I'm already on my third deal while they're still dealing with the hangover.
Right.
So I was just always one step ahead. Then I went 2, 3 steps ahead. Now, everything that I do or any decision I make, I look from a bird's view, right?
Yeah.
I zoom out.
Gotcha.
And I'm like, should I react like that? Let's look 2 years from now. Let's look 3. Let's put all the plays and, and I don't know. I think, and I'm not here to promote sobriety, right? But I really do think that it does something to your mind, to your soul, it really does. Because a lot of people just want to, They want to run away, and that's a runaway. Just the people that you see, those like young kids, you never know where they are.
Right.
3 months they're here, they're running. They're running from themselves, from the world, from their insecurities, right? The second they don't like something, they run. No,
Sure.
you got to go through those demons. That's what they tell you, right? You got to go through the demon. You got to face them.
Yeah.
So I had to face my own.
And 9 times out of 10, it's not as bad as you thought it would be. It's like, it's harder to avoid it.
Yeah.
And once you go through, you're like, oh shit, that wasn't really that bad. Like, here we are, we're on the other side of it, versus like, you know, for years pushing away, or like you said, drinking it away. And then when you finally face it, you realize that you made it bigger in your head than it really was, you know? Which most things, I mean, even in this industry, like people afraid to get on the phone. Then the first time you get on the phone, you're like, oh, it really wasn't that bad.
Yeah, someone told me that there's a fear. I'm like, people getting on the phone?
Just fear.
Like it never even, you know, it never, and I get it. Like now, and when I look more, I'm like, you know, I notice a lot more insecurities in people than I thought.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, man, like the collective needs more now than ever.
Absolutely.
There needs to be a big shift. Like Dana, you know, White had like this reel that I watched, and I kept on watching, and I'm like, how true is this? It's like this generation is so weak. It's like if you're one of the few like savages, like it's so easy to run over them. It's so easy to be great in this generation.
Yeah.
In ours, it wasn't.
No.
Because, like, everyone was competing. I'm like, man, everybody was grinding. Everybody was working. I'm like, you really had to compete. You're like, here, if you're pretty good with the bare minimum, you can be pretty great.
Sure.
And there's more opportunity than anywhere. And it's like, I really, you know, that's why I spend, especially on younger people. And we have a lot of younger people in our agencies, right? In the industry, like, I take it to heart. You know, I give a lot of energy and a lot of, because I really, like, I develop a soft spot, and I'm like, because I wish I had that.
Yeah.
I didn't have that. Like, I had to fight my way out by myself. No one helped me. So that always drives me every day. Whether they stay or whether they go, I know in some way, shape, or form I impacted their lives, or at least shown them that there was people that will be there without motive or interest. Because I never have motive. Like, what do I need from you?
Right.
Ever. From anybody. You know what I mean? Like, so, and I think that speaks volumes, you know, because everybody's always got an interest somewhere.
Absolutely. Well, we have a lot of people watching, Mela. If there's someone out there that wants to join your team, you're building a team, right?
Oh, yeah.
Where do they follow you? What social media platform? What's your
them?
handle? Right there. Right here. There you go.
Oh, perfect. Yes. It's Amela Smalibegovic. Amela Smalibegovic on Instagram. Here's what I will tell you. I will train better salespeople than anyone in terms of sales process, in terms of teams. But second, I do not want people who have to think about it, who maybe want this as a second job. And I love to build people teams.
Yeah.
Like, I really like that. It's not just about, like, I'm always thinking, hey, who can I bring on that would be so great, you know, with Brittany, you know, or this. So, and I want to do that for everyone. I want to build them something of their own. And that's my main driver.
Love it. We like to wrap up, Amela, with some fun questions that have nothing to do with life insurance, nothing to do with anything we just talked about. So I got a list here. I'm going to give you a few. Here's a fun one. What's your most embarrassing moment? Do you have one?
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
No. I don't know. I just don't get embarrassed.
Nothing stands out? Okay.
Nothing stands out, but I will get back to if I think of something.
All right, we'll come back to that.
Yes.
Here's a fun one.
Because I joke around about everything. Like, I make fun of myself.
So you just make light of it, so.
I make light of everything. Yeah, so it's like, yeah, I'll embarrass myself. All right. Yeah, I'll think of something.
If you could be any animal, what would you be and why?
Oh, that's so good. I love that one. You know, I always thought a dolphin.
Okay.
Well, no,
that's
fun
not
with the fun question. I always thought that, like, originally, because I'm like, you know, they're so peaceful and they're these beautiful creatures and around. And then I realized, I don't know, they just don't have much substance.
Okay.
And no offense to the dolphins out there.
Yeah, any dolphins
no offense
watching,
to SeaWorld. Yeah. No, for sure. A tiger or a lion.
Okay.
Yeah, it is, because the law of the jungle, right?
Yep.
And that's how you are, and you're, for sure, because they have character, they have strength as animals. They portray the savages in the real world, and we're all in the jungle, so That's for sure. I've made that mine.
All right. Do you have any hidden talents that most people don't know about?
Hidden talents
Yeah.
beside my rap career?
Yeah, no. Hey, that's a hidden talent.
Well, no, I'm a big athlete. A lot of people wouldn't think that.
Okay.
I was
What sport?
for years USTA Tennis Association.
Really?
Big player.
Okay.
Yep.
There you go.
I'm a huge avid skier. I almost went pro in skiing. I don't know if you know, but the Winter Olympics were held in '84 in Sarajevo.
Okay, I did
Where
not know
I'm
that.
from. My dad was like one of the slalom judges, so they got me on all the Olympic courses by the time I was 3, and I was at the age of 5. I was going to start the sports school for professional athletes
Yeah.
for skiing. And that's when the war broke out.
Oh, wow.
Swimmer, all that. I don't know what other food. I will down more food than anyone.
Really?
I will out eat you and your 5 friends.
I don't know about that, but what's your favorite food?
I eat everything but seafood. I don't like seafood.
You don't eat seafood. Okay.
Yeah, I am.
And then are you a movie person?
I love movies. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, huge.
So I always like this fun question, right? You know, Elon Musk wants to move everybody to Mars someday, right? Let's say we're getting ready to go, and he says you only have room to pack one movie.
One?
Yep. What would that be?
And I'm going to not mention the classics like Goodfellas or
Okay.
Godfather, right? So besides that, Training Day.
Training Day. That's a great one. I like that. And do you have a favorite song? Or the last song that you kind of just binged on, played on repeat?
Millie,
Okay.
because it is.
Because
Millie, and
got
it is my team name.
all right, that's your song.
Yeah, that's
Love it.
been my song for like 20 years, like because
Okay.
it was Millie.
Oh, so you think he's saying your name?
Oh yeah,
Of
well
course.
everybody else did in high
Right,
school.
yeah.
And so I got named a Millie.
There you go.
And so it's just been me and Lil Wayne since.
Nice. Love it. Well, I appreciate you coming up doing this.
Thank you
I really
so
do.
much, and thank you for your team. Like everybody's
Absolutely.
been so great. This was such a good experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for
Thank
coming
you.
up. We appreciate you guys checking us out. You know where to find us every week right here on True Talk. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and we'll see you next week.